Welcome, David Garner.
Hello, Jeremy. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I will pull up the rest of your friends and panel mates now. We have Dr. Rohit, Josh, Jim, and Stefaan. I think that's the five of y'all total. If we can do a quick around the table, can you give me a quick intro yourself and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. I can give you a quick start. My name's David Garner. I work as a communication officer for Iagon, and will be today's moderator.
Hi there, I'm Stefaan Vervaet. I work for Protocol Labs or Filecoin, responsible for the storage provider growth and clients.
And Jim Donovan, I run the product team at Wasabi, a centralized public cloud object storage provider.
Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Noble, CEO and co-founder of Filebase, building some interesting platforms on top of decentralized storage.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohit Gupta. I'm representing Iagon and one of the co-founder. This area is extremely passionate for me. What we at Iagon, we are trying to build a completely decentralized and storage and computing solutions. And this is an area in which I also did my PhD in 2005, with the difference that instead of using crypto tokens, we were using a reputation as a form of currency. So extremely excited to be part of the panel.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing more about decentralized storage, and I will hand that over to David now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Before we start, would you like to say a big thank you to Equinix Metal for making this be able to happen and bringing all these interesting companies and people together so that we can talk about our very important theme, decentralized storage. And we'd just like to say thank you to the audience in advance for any questions and interest you show in what we're doing in this industry. So feel free to ask questions. We'll try and find some time to answer some of them. And yeah, have a great time watching and listening to these fantastic people talk about decentralized storage. Just to put down some guidelines, we can try and keep it to about 2 minutes for answering the questions. If anyone wants to add anything, just raise your hand, and then I'll send it over to you afterwards. Are we all ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah, great. Decentralized storage, it's a new technology, and as with many new innovations or upgrades that operate with new technology, decentralized storage as a concept may be hard to understand why it's needed. I mean, we already have so many working centralized services like AWS, Google, Wasabi, among others. And my question is, what makes decentralized storage different from the solutions we have today? I was wondering, Rohit, if you could give us a quick answer on that.
Sure, David. Happy to share my perspective, my experience, and my observation regarding centralized storage and decentralized storage. So, let me start by showing the advantages of decentralized storage. It provides extreme reliability and availability, extreme high levels of privacy, while at the same time being extremely cost efficient and eco-friendly. But these things have to be done right. On the other hand, like you said, centralized storage exists. It's extremely successful, and primarily, the advantages it offers is very predictable performance, transparency, and controls to make things like auditing possible, being able to take compute to storage, and on top of that, extremely well understood APIs, protocols, and user workflows, which are still maturing in the completely decentralized space. So look, I think both have their share of strength, and at the same time, the applications of today, they have different requirements, also depending on the context and in which they get used. So what we need to do in the community is to provide a full spectrum of storage options available to our customers, so that they can easily customize and tune what works best for them and for their applications. So I feel that both centralized storage and decentralized storage, they can coexist. They both are required. And I feel the beauty is that the innovations in both these spaces, they can help each other. So I feel that both need to coexist, both need to be successful for the end customers to be successful.
Okay, thank you very much, Rohit. Is there anything anyone wants to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's decentralized storage offers a lot of benefits. To echo on some of the comments that Rohit just shared, we're seeing this global shift of users all over the world using applications at a global scale, and all the services that power these applications, all the way from storage to compute to databases, are kind of following that trend. I'll give you a quick example. It actually just came out today. DataStax has an Astra DB product, which is essentially Cassandra in the cloud. And they just announced multi-region support for this earlier today. And they're following in the footsteps of companies like Cockroach DB, who offer multi-region Postgres. AWS already has multi-region, DynamoDB and other database services. And those are all databases, right? Some are key value storage, but beyond that, decentralized storage does that for simple use cases like object storage and block storage. And so I think the biggest aspect beyond just availability and durability and controls, it reduces the overall risk of storing data in the cloud. We're no longer constrained to a single point of failure. The data can be distributed at a global scale. It can be confined to a specific region. And then because of those location controls and how the data is spread, it does amazing things for performance. If you set things up correctly, the edge with decentralized storage is no longer in the closest data center to you, which could still be a few hundred miles away. The edge could be your neighbor's house down the street, and you could be on the same internet service provider network as your neighbor. And now you're getting blistering performance because you're not even having going out to the public internet to fetch.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I have to cut you off there. Sorry, we have to move on to the next question. Stefan, this one is for you. So obviously, data is a very valuable asset, both for individuals and businesses, and the need for safe places of storage are increasing, and we see this all the time in the news with breaches of data being stolen, ransomware, and so on and so forth. And what I want to ask you is, how does decentralized storage deal with making sure that data isn't lost? How does it deal with redundancy?
Yeah, good question. So customers are interested in not just data redundancy, right, to protect against data disaster recovery, or if they're trying to comply with certain regulations, but also data integrity. So in a decentralized way, one of the benefits that was brought up earlier is the fact that you have more control and choice. So you can choose how many copies you can store or want to store, and also you have more choice from multiple storage providers. You will have the ability to choose from more regions than the current centralized solutions offer you. So you can actually reduce your risk. So as a client, you have a lot more options. First of all, to create multiple copies, but also in a decentralized stack, when it's done correctly, like what we've done here at Filecoin is we've built in data integrity checks. So daily data integrity checks that verify through cryptographic hashing that the data that you stored is actually the same data that you originally stored on the platform. So really, the integrity, the guarantee that it is consistent and it hasn't been changed is very important. And so the value it brings to the customer is that they're guaranteed that through these cryptographic hashes that their data is still consistent, and B, they have the option to store multiple copies. Like some of our customers are storing 5 copies now, just because of the cost is so low, plus the opportunity to store it on multiple locations is there now. And as what Josh was saying, is you can bring that data closer to your endpoints, so you can actually support even certain regions that you were not able to support before. On the storage provider side, when you're a storage provider, you can also now tap into this network, meaning if you have a location, you have a certain infrastructure that differentiates from other storage providers because, let's say, you use green energy, or you're in a location that's underserved by some of these larger providers, you actually can contribute now. You can opt into this decentralized storage network, and you can become the backup of, let's say, another storage provider, or copies from a customer that's storing data in another storage provider network. So basically, this decentralized stack brings value to both clients and storage providers in this new, decentralized stack that's built by the community for the community.
Thank you very much, Stefan. We're going to go straight to the next question. So one of the main differences between decentralized and centralized storage is how the network is managed. So centralized storage often has earmarked data centers or has partners and that. But decentralized storage is also, in some sense, dependent on independent nodes, giving resources through storage or compute power, perhaps, to the network. Josh, could you explain a little bit about how, with independent nodes, how the data is protected from the nodes themselves looking at what you've stored on their computers?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, we've seen Filebase work with a lot of different decentralized storage networks. So the overall implementation varies slightly from network to network, but security on all these networks is very much at the forefront. Typically, the trend that we often see for protecting data is most of these networks rely on things like Reed-Solomon erasure coding on a globally distributed scale. A single file or object may be split into 30 or 80 different pieces, and then each individual shard of that object is actually often individually encrypted with a unique encryption key. And then each shard is stored on a different node somewhere on the network. And essentially, this results in an end state where these storage providers and hosts and node operators, they're essentially storing encrypted blobs on their servers. And the storage provider themselves, they're unable to see any of this actual data because it's encrypted before it arrives to the servers.
Thank you very much. Someone want to build upon that?
Yeah, I can just also just add to that. Like one of the things that we're trying to do at Iagon also is to get like some more indicator if any of the storage provider is attempting to tamper with the data. So we also are recording that how many attempts that they have made to go to that particular directory, how many attempts have been made to try to open that file. So it's not conclusive, but it's a signal that we've started to gather, and we are looking at closely to build some ML models on top of that to again be able to predict that there is an attempt being made to tamper with the data.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to add to that is like the benefits of decentralization is that there's no single entity that controls a full network, right? And that brings like some really unique attributes to the table, and one of them is the ability to store immutable data. So really storing data in an immutable way so that you're certain that if something was changed on that data, that you will know about it, or two that when you restore the data, that you'll know for sure that the data is exactly the same as if you originally stored it in. So and that's something that's you can accomplish similar characteristics in the cloud as it exists today, but it's a lot more expensive, where in a decentralized manner, it's sort of native into the protocol.
Okay, thank you very much, Stefan. This brings it to Jim. Wasabi, you're sort of the new type of centralized storage company. And my question to you is, what is a standalone service provider, and what reasons are there for being one, and what reasons are there for not being one?
Sure, thanks, David. So one way to look at it is the hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, and GCP provide a broad suite of services, including services that might ultimately compete with other blockchain use case you might be working on. We saw an interesting presentation about ledger hosting and technology, and it's only a matter of time that if AWS thinks that's going to be profitable, they're going to start building one of their own. And so this is kind of a disincentive to leverage that type of approach. And then you have standalone purpose-built blockchain infrastructure providers like Equinix Metal, like Wasabi, and even some of the decentralized storage providers on the panel today. So if I'm a developer doing innovative work in blockchain and cryptocurrency, I would argue that the purpose-built providers like Equinix Metal, like Wasabi, like the decentralized providers on the panel today are a better fit for your use case because the price and performance advantages they can provide relative to the hyperscalers.
Thank you very much, Jim. The next question, I mean, we've been talking about decentralized storage and how fantastic it is and all the positive sides of it, but we have to be a bit realistic about our feet on the ground and say, okay, what challenges are facing decentralized storage solutions at the moment? And I thought, Josh, this might be a question you could answer.
Yeah, happy to shed some light on this. So actually, surprisingly, one of the biggest challenges at Filebase that we're facing is actually relating to minimum file sizes, believe it or not, often referred to as sector sizes. Many different networks have different primitives and concepts that they build on top of. But a lot of these networks often have very large sector sizes. And what this means, to give you a simple example, one of the networks that we offer at Filebase support for is the SIA network. And they have a minimum file size of 40 megabytes. So what this means is if you want to store a 1 megabyte image on this network, you're actually kind of stuck paying for 39 megabytes of padding, and you have to actually upload all that padding. So with a 3x redundancy or overhead through erasure coding, you end up in a scenario where a 1 megabyte file turns into 120 megabytes of storage cost and bandwidth. And so we're working as a layer 2 provider at Filebase, we're working to kind of solve this problem of being able to pack multiple files into a single sector or to a single object that's stored on the network and be able to stream from specific byte range offsets to kind of make this more efficient. That's one of the challenges we've seen at Filebase.
Okay, is anyone else want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, I think it's Stefaan here. I think, overall, what we're seeing at Falcon is today we have like more than 3,000 systems out there just in the last 10 months and 10 exabytes. So we've been growing exponentially, which is amazing. I think the challenge we're seeing is awareness meaning the traditional, what we call Web 2 world, is not necessarily aware of all the capabilities that are there. So that's one. And two is talent. Also, the ability to connect, the existing Veeam and all the backup tools, the current applications that we're so used to, and find a way to connect it into this decentralized stack. So I think the onboarding experience, that's basically what I'm referring to, is something that is a challenge, but at the same time an opportunity.
I'd just like to add a question onto that, because this is talking about data. It's quite important to actually talk a little bit about compliance. I mean, GDPR has become a big thing in the world today. And Rohit, I was just wondering if you have any comments in regards to how to perhaps solve or work with GDPR regulation in technology.
Yeah, so I think at Iagon, we are doing a couple of things to make sure that our platform is fully GDPR compliant and we can meet the needs of the governments and the clients and abide by all the regulations. So one, we are working on a certification process. So when these resource providers, they join our platform, they have to certify and share with us the region they are located in. So that's one. So that's one control that we are putting in place. So it's optional for the resource providers, but if they want to participate in a file upload download process, which has GDPR requirements, only resource providers which go through that certification process will be eligible. The second thing that we are doing that to further beef up the certification process and to make it even lighter weight, we are investing heavily on gathering some additional signals from the resource providers and build machine learning models to ascertain the presence of those resource providers. So at Iagon, so it's a two-pronged approach, relying on ML models and the certification process to make sure that the resource providers that get used for data storage are in compliance with GDPR.
Thank you very much, Rohit. Which sort of brings me on to the next question, which is sort of the million-dollar question, and that's if people or companies are providing storage, then they have to get paid in some way, or there has to be some sort of what's in it for me. And Stefan, I thought maybe that's something you could answer.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like we're at the same point where we were 15 years ago when Amazon started or released their S3 interface. And I remember that, that time very well, because we started off first. I personally helped grow an object storage startup. And so I feel like we're at the same point, but this one is more disruptive, meaning we are disrupting the full stack, right? And there's a lot of opportunity across the stack to innovate. What I mean by that is that today, when we look at decentralized storage, we currently have storage providers that are making money in different ways. One, of course, is participating in the reward system where they get paid in blocks by providing storage to the network, which is subsidizing their business. But if you are a storage provider out there and you have capacity, you have infrastructure, you have access to customers that you're dealing with on a daily basis, you can make money today by reusing some of the commodity hardware that you have and use it to participate in one of these decentralized storage networks and actually store your customers' data and make money both sides, right? One is by storing the data of your customer, and second is by earning these block rewards that we provide back to the community by being a participant in the network. Two is if you have software experience, as I mentioned before, there's very little, it's still an untapped, there's so much opportunity out there. You can actually build a Web3 practice. When I say Web3, we refer to this decentralized infrastructure as a Web3, where everything is decentralized, which means that the infrastructure is decentralized, applications are decentralized. So if you have software experience, you can actually bring value just right there by creating the bridge between what I mentioned earlier, the traditional applications, right? The traditional apps that you use today, and move data into the Web3 world, in this decentralized world. And third is you can differentiate yourself as well in this Web3 world because of the fact that, let's say you have an infrastructure already that is utilizing green energy and you want to promote that. There are reputation systems today that will give you the ability to promote your own services to this decentralized network. And you could be like the disaster recovery copy, or you could tap into some of, in some of the existing funnel of customers that we have coming on board onto our network. And so overall, I think when you look at sort of like some stats, right, of what's happening today, we, in Filecoin at least, we have, more than 7,000 developers on a constant basis, more than 400 projects that are being developed as it exists today. We hand out grants. So let's say you're building a new application, you're integrating your tooling into these decentralized stacks. We will provide grants of 5,000, 30,000, 100,000, and more to anyone who comes up with a tool that will contribute to the open source community. So there's a lot of ways for you to bootstrap or build services on top of this platform and help you yourself differentiate, and that happens across the
Thank you, Stefan. Sorry, I have to cut you off there. I would like just to hear very quickly from you, Jim, considering you have probably a different type of business model to motivate your resources providers.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, we are the price leader for public cloud object storage today. I mean, we're 1/5 the cost of what you pay from a hyperscaler perspective. So we saw tremendous growth over the course of this year with Chia and other cryptocurrencies. So I think there's a lot of use cases out there, and we benefited from them. And I think the decentralized providers will do the same, just based on the value that we can provide.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is for you, Rohit. Blockchain. When we talk about blockchain, one of the big questions around blockchain that comes up is transactions per second, or how much you can store it in a short amount of time, or per block. And this obviously, mostly once we talk about this in the community, it's mostly been about the transactions per second in terms of payments. But is there a relationship between that and storing data, or is that something not to worry about?
So, David, that's a great point. I think that's constantly a concern that we hear at Iagon from our partner and prospective new customers. Look, this is not an issue, because it can be a problem if not engineered right. But if engineered right, this is not a problem at all, because our approach, and I believe like that's happening with other decentralized providers as well, is to make sure that only the most critical metadata gets stored on blockchain. The rest of the majority of the data, it gets sharded, it gets encrypted, and it gets spread across and stored in the resource provider all over the globe. So it's not on blockchain. So it's the critical metadata as the last step of the operation that gets stored in blockchain to ensure that data, to ensure the integrity of the data, to ascertain, to put some critical audit controls, and to be able to reassemble and decrypt the data. So it's not in our all the testing and all our experience, we do not see any performance impact on storing even terabytes of data, whether it's stored on Iagon or in a cloud provider like AWS.
Okay, thank you very much, Rohit. A question for you, Josh. people might misunderstand that decentralized storage is sort of, we're going to revolutionize the world and change the world, which we're trying to do, I assume, but we also want to work with established businesses. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a bit about the interoperability between decentralized storage applications and other types of applications that can be built on top of what we're doing to allow those types of people to build on top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the interoperability discussion point is important. A lot of decentralized storage networks have very different APIs across the board. There's often, from project to project or network to network, a lot of these APIs don't match up with each other. They're all developed differently. And so at Filebase, what we're trying to do to try to solve this problem is bringing them all together. Essentially, Filebase is a Web 2.0 aggregator, if you will, a layer 2 solution that gives you kind of an access point with an S3 compatible interface to all these different networks. And so really, our success is the direct success of all these underlying networks that we interface with. But this allows us to connect, networks like Saya and storage and Filecoin to thousands of different backup tools, application SDKs, and frameworks. And so really any workload that can run on the traditional centralized cloud today, such as an S3 compatible workload, can be interfaced with to a decentralized storage network through a connection layer such as Filebase. The best way we like to paint this picture is, 60 million people aren't downloading the Bitcoin blockchain and synchronizing all that software. They're using the Coinbase application, right? And so Coinbase is the perfect layer 2 solution to kind of draw an analogy of how Filebase kind of sits in the ecosystem.
Thank you very much for a great answer, Joshua. We're running a bit short of time, so I thought we'd do the big question right now, which anyone can feel. Just raise your hand if you want to answer it, and it's why now? Why decentralized storage now?
I think
Who wants to do that?
I think right, multiple reasons, but I think the sentiment of the user also has changed, right? Where users want more control over their own data, and I think that's kind of translating into also the underlying infrastructure, and also storage providers also want to get a bigger piece of the pie and control the services they provide. And in this way, and in a decentralized way, everyone gets paid back and benefits from it.
For me personally, it's the data growth. I mean, the rate of growth of data in the world today is staggering. 2 quick stats to show you how staggering it is. The average Tesla car on a daily basis generates about 1 terabyte of data per day. The amount of data uploaded to YouTube every single day is equivalent to the entire history of television aired publicly up to that point. So the amount of data growing on a daily basis is astronomical. And the more capacity we can leverage from all these different commodity and excess capacity lying around data centers and bring that capacity together, it's a huge win.
Yeah, I would agree with Joshua on that. In terms of whether you take a centralized approach or decentralized approach, it's about leveraging the power of the cloud for your blockchain innovation.
Yeah, and just plus one, and just to support what others have said, I think, but just another perspective of this, we have 30% of storage sitting idle based on our estimations, which translates to huge amount of CO2 emission savings. And the calculations we've done, we're talking about trillions of tons of CO2 that we can prevent from going out and affecting our environment.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've covered almost all the bases, Jeremy. We just managed to finish in the nick of time.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that. Yeah, did not have bonus chat questions, but yeah, if you're interested in dropping links for further information or want to continue that chat, either tagging that onto the video or on attaching that to Equinix Metal on Twitter is probably a great place to go. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Enjoyed that, and I will catch you before too long.
Yeah. Bye-bye.